When my human self presents to me many challenges that burden me, my heart center shines and calls to me. This is who I choose to be. Sometimes lessons.
Welcome to the Vibrational Alchemy Podcast. This is Penny Fisher, and we are so glad you are joining us for this week's episode. Hello, my beautiful soul family. Such a gift to be here with you, as it always is. I'm really excited about this week's episode. As always, I come into these each week not quite sure about what the topic will be or how it's going to unfold. And every week when I hit the place where I'm grasping after, feeling like I need to have control, feeling like I need to have a plan, something magical just happens and opens up. And that's what happened this week. So this week's podcast, which we're calling From Contraction to Curiosity, we could also call it From Control to Curiosity. This week's episode is inspired by a conversation I had actually a week ago with an amazing young man, friend of the family, but just this profound, deep thinker, open-hearted being who teaches me every time I talk with him. And we got into this very deep conversation about this idea of staying present, even in the face of discomfort, even when situations are feeling overwhelming, of how do we release the need to control, which is something I'm always working on, and working to find a way to navigate our way from fear and contraction to a place of acceptance and openness. And the conversation was kickstarted by a quote of the day that I shared on my TikTok and Facebook and Instagram feeds as part of this daily gratitude journal that I'm working with. Yeah, I post those every day, so you can find me there. And I think when this podcast drops, it'll be like, I don't know, day 145 or something. I'm committed to going a year, so we'll see how that all works out. Anyway, the quote for the day was from author Margot Anand, and she says this: "Peace happens when I don't yearn for the present to be different than it is." Sounds pretty straightforward, right? But then life happens. Then something really personally challenging, or in a bigger context, happens. Like, for instance, the events in Pennsylvania a week ago, right at that political rally. And those of you who know me know that I don't really go out of my way to follow the news. I am not a TV watcher, but we happened to be out to dinner with friends that night. Little hole-in-the-wall restaurant that had TVs up on the wall, and I happened to be seated facing the TV that had the news feed on. So we're watching the rally, can't hear anything. I'm not really paying much attention, thoroughly enjoying my friends, the company, the food, just having a great time. But it turned out that I actually watched the whole thing unfold. And as it became more and more clear what was really happening, I started to feel these very visceral physical reactions. I don't even have words. I was engulfed in grief. I was terrified. I felt completely overwhelmed right? And I actually said to my friends on the drive home, I wish I could just hit the rewind button and go back to before this happened. I share this with you as an example of someone who was not doing a good job in that moment to be okay with the moment as it was. I was completely caught up in wishing and praying and hoping that the moment could be different than it actually was. I got caught up in those stories in my head. And I did all the things I know how to do, right? I used my breath. I tried to open my heart. I tried to send love, but I kept getting caught in this spiral of stories about what could happen and the possible implications, all the things that could spin out of control, right? I was for sure the poster child of not being in a space of being present and accepting, right? And it was a tough night. I was physically ill, feeling my emotions and the emotions of the collective. And then I got this phone call on Sunday. And I got the gift of the reminder to step into a different perspective, right? And so I want to share that with you. You see, my friend TJ had recently been through, actually just earlier that week, had been through a really challenging experience. He's fine, everything's okay, but it was something that really had an impact on him, not only on his personal life, day-to-day life, but also his life as an athlete, but also had the potential to have an impact on an internship that he was just starting. And so, and potential impact on his professional life. And he called me and he said, that quote that you shared really, really, really got me thinking. And he said the following, and I want to quote him directly because this is so beautiful. He said, I've spent a lot of time thinking about acceptance of what's going on in the here and now, and how much we fear change when we look at change as a negative. I was really struggling to understand how to be open to change and how to be flexible and also have a goal. And then also to be content with where you are. It blew me away. All of this deep, reflective, introspective growth from this beautiful 20-year-old soul. And so when he called, we talked, and we talked a lot and for a long time. And I want to share 3 of my really big takeaways with you from this really amazingly profound conversation. The first is about releasing control. The second is about this idea of becoming comfortable with discomfort. And out of that grows my third big reminder, which is to always be willing to invite fear in as an ally. So this first idea about being willing to release control, right? So TJ is a world-class athlete and he trains hard, right? He is incredibly focused. He is goal-oriented. He competes at the national and international levels. He's really amazing. And he treats each session that he does, each training session and each competitive session, as an opportunity to get information about how things are going for him so that he can set new goals, right? And as we talked, he shared something that I thought was really, really cool about how he approaches not only his sport, but also his life, his day-to-day life. He told me that when he wakes up every morning, he sets expectations and he sets goals, and he differentiates between the two, right? His expectations have to do with the small step-by-step things that are going to happen throughout his day, right? It might be, and interestingly, a lot of the examples that he shared were about emotions he might have. So first day of an internship, I expect to feel nervous. I expect to feel a little off balance. I expect to feel tired because I was up late studying the night before, right? I expect to have to try something that's new several times. What struck me is that his expectations are small, they're very reasonable, and they help him tap into his emotional guidance system. When he does that, it gives him a sense of control. And control kind of settles any anxiety. It tamps down or relieves the pressure. That's a better way of putting it. It relieves the pressure that we feel when something unexpected comes up. But here's the fact of the matter. Control is the great illusion. There is no such thing. We don't have control over anything. But our little ego self, which so desperately wants to keep us safe, is hungry for control so that it can predict, it can plan, it can prescribe, it can manage our lives so that we feel like we are safe, we are in control, right? When we acknowledge that we can't control anything, and here's the conundrum, right? The only way that we can control anything is by releasing the need for control. When we can acknowledge that and live into that space, we are able to expand. We are able to experience a spaciousness that enables us to allow. We just allow the flow. And when we're in this sense of spaciousness, we are able to move into this role of being the observer. So we observe our emotions. We observe our reactions. They're not us. We're having that experience, but we are not them, right? The English language is grammatically constructed to identify us with those emotions. I am angry. I am afraid. I am nervous. In many of the Romance languages, the grammatical construction is very different. I am having anger. I am having fear, right? When we release this need to control, when we do it through breath, or we connect with our guides and our angels, when we bring in the light of Source, we create space that lets us release the control and step back from the connection to the stories, right? The connection to the identities that we've created around whatever the situation is. It helps us remember who we are. It helps us remember that we are love. And that's it. There is nothing else. And TJ is stepping into this space in a profoundly beautiful way. You see, those expectations every day that he sets are allowing him to build a bridge from the need to feel in control to the place where he can start to release the control in terms of how he's going to get from where he is to where he wants to be. He's able to create goals, and the goals are different from the expectations, right? The goals are what he's shooting for. It's the vision of where he's heading, not the every single day, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, but the bigger construct that he's moving toward. And because he is able to release the need to control the contraction around how he's going to get to those goals. And in a minute, I'll tell you, he's even released attachment to the results, which is so cool. But he's able to stay flexible. He's able to stay in that space of curiosity. He's able to stay fully present in the moment. And that allows him to move into the space that Margot Anand was talking about, that space of peace, which comes when I don't yearn for the present to be any different than it is. So TJ can stay in, he expects that he's going to have heavy emotions. He can allow them, and he can stay open and curious. He put it to me this way. How beautiful is this? He said, my goals are about changing my future outcomes, not my current self. And once again, my mind was blown because, like we said, he has this vision of where he's going, but he does not allow that vision to cause contraction in the present moment beyond the normal human contraction around things that we can't control. And he said to me, and here's another direct quote, he said, being present like this allows self-confidence and drive for improvement like no other perspective can. Isn't that amazing? You see, he's working to stay fully present in the moment. And because of that, he is not reaching for macro change. He's not trying to control anything. He's just resting in the reality of who he is, of his here and now. And when we return to the space of deep inner knowing of the truth of who we are, of who each one of you are, that you are source energy, you are love, you are light, you are a divine and perfect being. When we return to that, we see how TJ's perspective allows us to just rest and connect with the quantum field in which all possibility exists, right? That's the place of infinite knowledge, unlimited potential. I mean, it really is a place of what's the word? Infinitude, right? TJ also works from another really cool mindset that I'm going to reframe a little bit, but potato, right? TJ operates from the mindset that everything is failure. So why not approach everything as a learning experience? My reframe on that is that there's no such thing as failure, right? It's just we make a choice, we act on that choice, things happen, we get information, and then we make new choices, right? And I did a really deep dive on this topic in, I think it was episode 22, called Redefining Failure. It's in the early 20s somewhere. So you can go back and check that out if you want. But I really wanted to share this because whether we say everything's a failure or failure doesn't exist, the outcome is the same in that it's something that we don't have to be afraid of, right? Do you see it? So we don't have to have contraction around failure, right? We can live in that space of, I don't have to change my current self in order to remember my way back to who I truly am. which is a being of love and light, a being that is not only worthy, but is capable of living a life of balance and ease, even when it gets uncomfortable. And that's my second big takeaway, this idea of being comfortable with discomfort, right? TJ and I were talking a lot about how we learn to be okay with discomfort, right? It's part of our human hardwiring to move away from it. And I think probably it has to do with survival instincts, right? If I'm outside and I get too cold, my instinct is to warm up so I don't get frostbite, or at the extreme end, I don't die from hypothermia. When I feel threatened, my instinct is to move into a place or a space where I feel safe, right? So that's just part of our human hardwiring. Here's where our conversation was so amazing and where TJ is so brilliant. In the very first part of our interaction, he talked about working to be open to change, even in the face of being fearful of change, right? Now, for me, anyhow, this combination of change and fear of change is a massive trigger. It sends me into a spin. It probably was a lot of the root cause of my reaction to the events at the rally in Pennsylvania, right? So as we were talking, I had kind of this light bulb popping moment. Because what I realized, or what I was reminded of, is that when I can be okay with discomfort, it's easier for me to move into the role of observer, right? When the discomfort comes, and this actually, I'm going to now swing into the third aha, because these all kind of go together. When the discomfort comes, when I get triggered and I get into that place of fear, I can welcome it. I mean, I can literally say to fear, come on in, come sit with me. Let's have a cup of tea and let's talk. Because I am not the discomfort. It is part of the signs. It's one of those signs along the road that point me to a place where I'm still holding on to control. And then I can check in and say, ooh, what is that really about? At the end of the day, those of you who have been with me throughout these podcasts know that I believe it's about fear, terror of not being loved, that we're not good enough, that we won't be accepted, that we won't be included. And the way around that is through it to a place of profound realization that all that matters is that we love ourselves. Because when we do, then nobody can trigger us and nothing can trigger us. So fear as an ally, that's my third aha, right? I don't have to be afraid of fear. I can notice the fear. I can thank it for being there. And I can just follow it like I would follow a goodie trail that leads me back into me. Because you see, my beautiful soul family, when we yearn for the present to be different than what it is, we have stepped into a kind of spiritual amnesia. We have forgotten who we are. We have forgotten that we are source energy. We are love. We are light. And we have access to all that we need to transform and transmute that fear energy. We don't need to heal it. We don't need to release it. We don't need to get rid of it, right? All of those things imply that there's something wrong with it. But that emotion is part of you. It's part of your electrical wiring. It's part of your energetic signature. So we don't want to get rid of it. What we want to do is we want to love it. We want to love it so much that it remembers who and what it truly is, which is love. It always has been. So we allow ourselves now to hold that fear in this container of compassion. And that was another earlier episode you can check out. We hold it in this container of compassion, this tender, open-hearted space. We open ourselves to invite in the unconditional love of Divine Mother, of the cosmic Christ consciousness, this white light, the violet flame to infuse us. We step into the flow of the rainbow light, the diamond light of the cosmic matrix, and allow that to infuse us. And as our hearts open with all of this light, the fear gets infused with that as well. And we realize that those aspects of ourselves that are afraid of pain, are afraid of discomfort, afraid to be alone, afraid that we're not worthy of love, ultimately, that we are afraid of death. These parts of us are infused with so much powerful love and light. They cannot help but be transformed back into love. So I would invite you, as you move through your day-to-day lives, as you experience contraction, as you experience the need to control, as you experience discomfort and fear, I would invite you to remember TJ's beautiful and brilliant words. To paraphrase, we don't have to be afraid of change, because change isn't negative, it's growth. And in the moment, it's just information for us. I would invite you to do your work in whatever way feels right for you, whether you're doing breathing and saturating your body with beautiful, life-giving oxygen that allows you to feel safe, whether you're sitting in meditation so that you can step into the space of becoming the observer, whether you are listening to inspirational music or podcasts, whether you are going for a walk in nature, whether you are on a yoga mat or in the gym, releasing all of this pain, all of this grasping, all of this control from your physical body, whatever it is that works for you. I invite you to remember that this is not about changing your current self. This is about just being present, discomfort and all, so that you can remember your way back to who and what you are. And listen, you know, I always want to leave you with something very practical. All of those things I just named are very practical things that you can tap into, but I will do my best in the next few days to record a short meditation for us. There's an invocation to transform fear, and I'll see if I can bring through for us a meditation. I'll record that. I'll pop it up on the website. I'll put the link in the section on the website about in the section that has to do with the podcast information. The website again is vibrationalalchemy.net. Okay, all one word. But in the meantime, use your tools. And however you are engaging with your practices, Make sure you have time, as often as you need, to drop into your sacred heart space, enter the flow of the cosmic matrix, and allow yourselves to be saturated with the rainbow light, the diamond light of unconditional love that flows from the cosmic heart. Because simply by bringing your attention to your fear, your discomfort, your contraction, you change your relationship with it. All you have to do is just notice it. And little by little, one gentle heart-opening moment at a time, you will find that you are comfortable with discomfort, that fear is actually your friend or your ally, and that you are releasing your need to control. You are releasing the yearning for this moment to be different than it is. Your heart will open, and you will step fully into the remembrance of who you are, how Source sees you. And you know that it is my wish, my deep wish, that you all see yourselves this way, as perfect, divine beings of love and light. I am so grateful to each of you for joining me on this journey. I am Penny Starhart, and this has been the Vibrational Alchemy Podcast. Until we are together and again, remember that you are loved and you are love.
This is who